Hey, Peyton, nice to see you again on this beautiful day. And this time with a quote by, I guess, the Bible, Matthew 6, 24, 26, 30, and 34. Let's begin. Therefore, I tell you, don't worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Isn't life more than food and the body more than clothing? Consider the birds of the sky. They don't sow or reap or gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Aren't you worth more than they? If that's how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and thrown into the furnace tomorrow, won't He do much more for you, you of little faith? And 34. Therefore, don't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Hayden, it's one of your favorites. How come?
Good to be back with you, man. And I'll share a little tidbit. So, Jesus' native language is Aramaic, and the word he uses for worry in Aramaic is yitzef, which means to divide the mind. And so, one of his biggest themes, actually, in his original tongue, is this theme of worry, or this theme of wholeness versus division. And this is one of many cases where that plays out. So do not divide your mind about tomorrow, and seek first the king's reign of God, and all these things will be added to you. He's talking about this real experience that we have of when we are worried about tomorrow, when we're preoccupied about what we need, when we're trying to control how things go, then it cuts us off in some way from wholeness, from the wholeness of the now that is unfolding. And the now that is unfolding, when we're completely here, when we're completely seeing, feeling, tasting, touching, present now in the unfolding wholeness, this is where our greatest flow is. This is where our creativity is. This is where our unity is. This is where we are at our best. This is where we are aligned and performing at our best, of course, but also bearing our best fruit in pretty much all ways. When we are dividing our mind, and I'm sitting here, but really my mind is sort of playing some superimposed scene of the future and what I'm going to need to do and what I need to control and how are things going to go and how am I going to make the plan to make sure I have this and I don't have this and this thing doesn't happen and I make sure of this, and what about if this happens? Then I'm cutting myself off from my source of power. I'm cutting myself off from the source. I'm cutting myself off from my capacity to do what is within my control in this moment and to be free already in this moment. So, dividing our mind is cutting ourselves off from the thing that we need most, even to manifest the reality that we would wish to have in the future. Cutting off our ability to trust. And this you of little faith, the better word for this rather than faith is trust. He's not talking about you who don't agree with these right facts. He's talking about you who are not completely surrendering and trusting in the unfolding of reality. This trust is the key to allowing ourselves to align ourselves in wholeness now. We must trust in the unfolding of reality to completely bring ourselves into wholeness, which is the foundation of flow and creativity in being our best self. How do you experience this dichotomy of worrying about the future, trying to come back to this trust? What is the key in your experience? And when we see that we are, in fact, worrying, as we inevitably will, what do we need in order to come back to wholeness, in order to come back to flow?
Good question. Thank you. And what I think is what we need is to remember everything which happened to us that led us to the point where we are right now. It is amazing what happened to us being in the position we are in right now, having everything we need, never having to suffer, never having to be without a roof over our heads, and sometimes being able to choose even to be without a roof over our heads when we go into the nature and camp there under the stars, having the freedom and flexibility that we have right now. having the possibilities and technological opportunities we have right now. Everything we most likely didn't earn it all by ourselves. We were gifted it by whomever, like by the people who came before us, by great entrepreneurs who built the products which are now distributed widely, which we can use, by our parents, by our mom and dad, by our siblings who were like mates along our way and shaped us into the person and personalities who we are today and our decisions. So everything worked out until the point where we are right now. For sure, there were setbacks. For sure, there were difficulties, but these ones were overcome. So that's why I think we just need to remember that everything so far has worked out in our favor. And every time it didn't, probably it was also some kind of our misdeed in terms of we try to cling onto some outcome. So then we interpret it as it didn't work out because it didn't went the way we wanted it to be, because we cling too much on our interpretation or our vision of the thing, how it should turn out. If we get stuck in the past and wishing things to be different that are not so, then it's also our fault because we can let that go. Well, not our fault, but our responsibility. We can let it go now because this is the only time which exists. And also Aristotle, when he thought about time, it is something in the past which doesn't exist anymore, and something in the future which doesn't exist, and something very narrow in the present which is only connecting two things which do not exist anymore. What is it then? What is now? Maybe this is all there is.
Hmm.
So we often talk about the source of power and that surrendering can lead to flow and enhanced creativity. How do you see that being realized in your day-to-day life, and how do you shape your day and your habits to make it more likely to occur?
Such a good question. I can say, as an entrepreneur, as you are, there's this dance that we are always in with this balance of finding flow amidst our intentions and amidst the responsibility and the agency that we have. Our balance on this spectrum of trust, surrender, acceptance, yet flowing with full life force, with intention and direction, trying to follow the magnet of the inner GPS toward wherever we are meant to move toward, listening and leaning in, putting forth a lot of effort and energy into what is before us, while yet completely doing our work and stepping back, while letting the most vital things take their course. This is the dance that we must do if we are to try to be an entrepreneur and do our best. Not merely for entrepreneurs, of course. This is a part of the journey for everybody. But I do think that many of the pressures of the entrepreneurial path, like some others, it's not unique in this way completely, but some of the pressures can bring heavy temptations to try to grasp on to control, to try to hold on or to hoard up and store into barns as the birds do not do. And so we need to find the right balance between, okay, yes, I need to prioritize the most important things. I need to oversee and steward those things that nobody else will do for me in this case. I need to see that there are some critical points by which things will succeed or fail. The mission will hinge on very specific things that I have some degree of agency over, despite the fact that I don't have complete control over. And I need to move with agency these factors without actually closing my fist around them and trying to delude myself with this sense of wanting to control or to hoard so that I never have to feel this insecurity. In some way, we need to open ourselves to the radical insecurity of the universe unfolding outside of our control, to the fact that we may do all that we can and still fail due to overwhelming factors from without. Yet at the same time, allow ourselves to move and flow and be vulnerable and to let the life force flow to where it is most important for it to flow while accepting and surrendering that anything may happen and that we do not ultimately have complete control over the unfolding of the universe. And so, in a very practical sense, what is the best that we can do? If you're somebody that's trying to manifest a vision, what does peak performance look like, so to speak? What is the absolute best you can do? And what I found is, and I've tried, unfortunately, I've tried both ways quite a bit of the trying to control sense and the trying to grasp and cling and struggle against reality versus this idea of radically trusting in the unfolding while entering into a flow without the ability to plan everything out or control everything. I find that when I'm in the mode of, I need this thing to happen next week and I need this thing not to happen, and I'm struggling against this thing that's here and I hate this thing that's going on right now and I really want this and I need this and I just can't live without this thing happening, and if this thing happens I'm going to be so mad, and all of this sort of this high struggle mode in reality, this trying to grasp onto this, and I'm going to do I'm going to whatever, I'm going to force this thing to happen, and this mode, it cuts off my flow, it cuts off my power, it cuts off my wisdom. When I'm in this mode, my interactions with people are not as smooth. I'm much less effective. I do much less despite exerting much more energy, despite suffering way more when I'm in this mode of not trusting in the universe to unfold, but trying to grasp on to this delusion of control. When I can surrender this illusion of control, when I can recognize that no matter what I do, some things are going to be outside of my control, and I need to move with intention and do my best while radically trusting and surrendering to the forces of the universe. This is when I can find peak performance. This is when I can find flow. This is when wisdom comes to me and I know exactly what needs to be said in the right moment without planning it in advance. When the vision comes to me from a source that is not my own, and the solutions to my hardest problems seem to emerge and fall into place, this is where I'm not grasping. I don't have a closed fist. I'm not controlling. I'm not the master of every single detail that goes on. And oftentimes have less of a specific plan despite having an intention and a direction. And this is when I'm actually doing so much more, like several times more, and my decisions are several times better. And I'm actually listening to my whole intuition and making way fewer mistakes that make things way worse while trying to make them better. And I've tested this over and over and over. And to surrender, to find unity in this moment, to not have a complete plan of how everything is going to go in the future, to not have every contingency mapped out, to not have control. This is what enables us to unlock and allow the source to move through us, to allow the vision to emerge, to allow us to create, to allow our intuition to speak and move us in each moment and have way less struggle, way less suffering with what is going on, and just a reality that no matter if I try to grasp onto control or I don't, I'm not going to be in control, period. And this gives us the capacity to look at the things that are the hardest to look at. This gives us the capacity to even admit our own mistakes and turn around before we go too far down this wrong path. And this enables us to be far more effective at manifesting whatever vision, at solving our hardest problems, at accomplishing our hardest goals, because ironically, we are accepting that we are not in control of any of them. We are letting go of this grasping on and this lack of trust. And from this foundation of trust, we can allow the flow to move through us and do what we could never do alone. How do you think about this? This sort of is this counterintuitive contradiction in our culture that you can do way more, you can manifest way more, you can even manage the downsides way better by surrendering control in your heart. Yet at the same time, you must flow with intention toward the things that must be stewarded the most diligently. How is this? How do we might have a blind spot of this? And how do we return to this when we become blind and recognize ourselves just struggling against reality in every way?
Well, there are different layers to it.
Yeah.
And what I feel about it is when we come from the point of trying to hoard and store and control everything, we are of little trust and of little faith. And this means, okay, hypothetically, when we stand in front of an obstacle, may it be a wall or a big stone or a big a big valley, which requires either a leap of faith or a jump. Then we try to jump higher than we are. So this is the layer which is the doing part. Okay, we try to do it, we try to control it, we try to grasp on it. But trust requires a capacity within ourselves to surrender and let go, and an increased negative capability to also trust in that suffering will pass or that pain will
Mm,
pass.
mm,
And this requires more like a becoming identity shift, a layer within yourself, like within the mindset, within the core, which helps you overgrow that obstacle or that cliff or that valley. And so this is the feel about that I have. Like the one thing is the doing part. Yeah, you can jump high, but you will be exhausted if you only rely on your capacity to jump high. The other thing is, okay, you can grow higher, you can become more. It is a shift in identity and shift in perceiving the world and a shift in capability of your whole being. So it is more about going on the journey of becoming a better version of you in terms of growing inside of yourself, growing in trust, growing in your faith. And that means, in my opinion, that it's all about the journey. That it's like life starts, life ends. In between, it is the journey. It is the journey, and how we experience the journey determines the quality of our lives as well. So, how we interpret the ways we struggled. Was it struggle to grow out of ourselves, like a fern rolling out of itself? Yeah, there's pressure. Yeah, there may be pain of growth, but it will unroll, it will become more, it will become big and spread the seedlings and seeds. Or is do we interpret it as only being hurt until we die? This is the internal journey, which is the big differentiator here as of how I perceive the differences. So we do our work and then step back, meaning we grow within ourselves and then we overgrow the obstacles just because we become more, we became more. Then there is a lot to be gained in ways of quality of life. Or anything to add, Peyton?
What you point out about negative capability is so important as it relates to what is true trust. This is so essential for us to remember because sometimes our culture will slip in something that is the opposite of what we're talking about here. Trust is not, dear God, I trust that I'll surrender and you'll still give me $1 million. Trust is not, God, I surrender here. I am going to trust that you are going to give me every single thing I want, and I'm not going to have to go through anything. And I trust that you're going to give me my way with everything I want. This is not true trust.
This is
Trust is
delusion.
this is trying to control God. In fact, this is trying to control the unfolding of reality, and it's just it's moving a step above on our deluding ourselves. To your point, trust is I trust that if you take away every single thing I have, that it will be fine, and that you will provide me what I need, even if it is not what I want. Trust is this feeling of God, even if my business fails, and if you take away everything from me, I trust in you. Trust is even if you take away my health, even if you take away this situation, even if I get this thing that I don't want or I do, or if I don't get this thing that I do want, or that I lose everything I have, I still trust in you. Trust is I trust that no matter what, you will provide for me. Trust is not the birds of the sky saying that I trust that you're going to give me a barn full of grain. This is not trust. Trust is no matter what, I cling on to nothing. All I need is wholeness. All I need will unfold no matter what happens, even if everything happens against what I want, even if I lose everything I trust. This is the foundation of trust, holding on to nothing, having everything within open palm, even our own self. I think that that's an important level of this. We don't want to accidentally slip our ways back in just in a different level of, I trust that you're going to give me everything I want. And if you don't, then you failed me. This is not real trust. And so the negative capability, and I trust that even if I get dragged into the valley of the shadow of death, that you will lead me through and carry me out. Even if I must suffer on this path, I trust. And I trust that even whatever happens, whatever I must endure, that it is your will. This ne wesabyana chakana da bashmaya afba'ar ah. May your unfolding will be. May what you determine the universe to unfold be exactly as you determined, regardless of my own plans, regardless of my own desires, regardless of what I am afraid of, regardless of what I crave, regardless of what I feel like I cannot live without. May your will be and not mine. May I align myself completely with your unfolding from my end unilaterally. This is the only way that we can reach wholeness and alignment, is to unilaterally surrender our own demands on reality being how we wish and rather enter into the flow of reality unfolding now. In doing this, we can see and recognize the wholeness because we are ceasing to divide ourselves from our end on it. It is us giving up our own divisions that can allow this wholeness to unfold. And in that wholeness, this is where we can find the flow of the source. This is where we can find peace and our best creativity and the best fruits in our life, whatever that may be, whatever that may lead to. This is my intention for the week, to actually walk this walk. When I find myself astray here, come back to wholeness, come back to trust, demand nothing, and to unilaterally surrender and align myself with the flow of what's actually here now and give it up and unify. How about you? What is your intention for the week?
Yeah, prepare some space for flow to arise and enjoy the journey during it. And one more thing, because this was definitely a classic world of ideas.
No doubt.
It is also in our book. Like, this is a preprint version of it.
Woo!
I proofread it and improve it. But this is also the last chapter of our book, Smart Bets. Peyton and I, we created, of our last episode, we created Smart Bets, the risk, desire, and game of being alive. And the last chapter, chapter 9, is about the source. How to align with it, how to live, how to experience it, and so on. From our experience, this definitely related to this book. If you're interested, link down below. Probably there will be like a waiting list or something like that. We're happy to share what we learned.
Beautiful. I can't believe you already shipped it, man. Looks good. Awesome. Sounds good. I will talk to you on the next one, my friend.
Talk to you soon, bro. Bye.